Hello and welcome to Drive-In Double Feature Podcast. I'm Nathan,
I'm Ryan.
and this is the podcast where we talk about two movies a week every Tuesday and Thursday. But before we get into today's episode, I want to talk to you about our Patreon. Over at patreon.com/Drive-In Double Feature Podcast, you can help us out and donate $5 to us every month. And with that, you unlock some fun bonus content. I think recently we just ranked movies on a random thing called Flick Chart. That was a lot of fun. So if you want to see some stuff like that, definitely check it out. But no main content is locked behind Patreon. But getting into today's episode, we are talking about The Giant Spider Invasion, directed by Bill Rebane. This is a 1975 film. B movie, as you can tell, it's a creature feature, spiders. That was a big deal in the 70s. Creature features like Night of the Lepus about attacking rabbits, and then you got the crocodile movie called Alligator. I never understood that one. Why they name it Alligator, but whatever. I don't know what I'm going on about. But yeah, that was like a big deal then. And I don't know, this looked like a fun movie from the poster. I didn't know much about it. I don't know if you knew anything about it, Ryan.
I knew about spiders before this.
Really? Okay. Have you seen one before?
No,
Okay.
no.
Yeah, they seem kind of creepy. But no, I actually I lived in Oklahoma for a time, and they have brown tarantulas there. And if you would go outside during certain seasons, there was a mating season, you would actually see groups of them like in kind of open areas. Really creepy. I'm not like scared of spiders, but tarantulas definitely are gross. So, there's a little bit of fear there. Are you scared of spiders at all?
No, I'm not.
No.
I would hold a tarantula.
You would? Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, I would hold the tarantula. I mean, I'm not really bothered by spiders.
Okay, cool. So going in, we were good. There wasn't any fear going on. But
Were
good
you
thing.
were you were you afraid before you started the movie? Like
Yeah,
just oh no,
I was a little
I
nervous.
gotta see a
Yeah.
spider.
Lucky enough for us, spiders don't show up till way late in the movie, so we were good. We got a good old drama out of this one.
Finally.
Yes, but no, this is a super low budget movie, $300,000. But I guess what makes this one notable is that it made $15 million and was one of the top 50 highest grossing movies of 1975. Um,
Oh.
wow, they really had low standards back then, because this is a B movie through and through. It might even be lower than that. This is cheaply made,
What
very 70s, honestly.
do you know what the top grossing movie was that year?
I don't. That is a good question. If only it was
Oh, oh,
1977.
it's this little movie called Jaws. I
Oh yeah, Jaws. Another movie about well, that's funny. That Jaws, right? Because they referenced Jaws
they
in this movie.
they do, yeah.
That's actually insane. I didn't even connect that they came out in the same year.
So
Um
this movie probably was made after Jaws came out in
yeah,
the same.
and then put out in just a little bit later. That actually makes sense for this movie. Um So another thing about this movie, this is a Mystery Science Theater 3000 movie, I guess. I guess they did this. So this is kind of popular in B-movie circles. I think we talked about this on Media Boys. I don't know if that was the episode that you were there, but I'm not a big MST3K head. It's not my favorite thing. But I mean, a lot of B movies got popular off of that show.
Uh, I like MS3K.
Okay.
I'm not a huge fan of the first host that was on there,
Yeah, I
Joel,
know about that. Yeah.
but I do like Mike. Mike was
Okay.
pretty funny, I thought.
Was he the one that was on the show for most of its run?
Uh, yeah, I mean he was there until the show ended. So,
Okay, got you. Yeah,
and then he's the one who does riff tracks now.
gotcha. Okay, makes
Yeah,
sense. And then Patton Oswalt was on the reboot on Netflix, right?
yeah. I didn't really watch that one.
Yeah, I had no interest in that one. But let's get into this movie. How did you feel about the giant spider invasion, Ryan?
Um, it was a good time to watch it because I was looking for something really cheesy and
Mm,
a lot of goofy moments, and you know what, this movie delivered for me, and I enjoyed it. I've had a good
mhm,
time watching it. And the first part is a little slow, but there's so many like moments in there where just like weird dialogue that's in this movie, like some
mhm.
at some points that was really making me laugh. And then when you see like the actual main spider at the end, it's everything I wanted it to be.
Yeah, and to me, I think this is a classic bad movie in my eyes. It's not good, but it's fun, and that's what I like seeing on this show is kind of just something I can sit back, turn off my brain, enjoy, and it's full of just like you said, weird moments, and that's what I really love when movies just have like weird scenes and stuff I wasn't expecting. Because this movie, if there's one tag I could put on it, right, IMDb tag, perverted. It has
Mm.
some really weird stuff in this. Not that it's like an overly sex movie, but it gets referenced quite a bit. So Wisconsin is where this movie is set, but this movie acts like Wisconsin is like redneck, like down south, in my opinion, which Wisconsin isn't. If you're not from America, it's right next to Canada. It's just like the Great Lake blocking them. So I don't know. It's just an odd way to do it.
Well, I mean they do have like a lot of like a big blue collar working area, so I mean I could
Of
see where it
course,
could it could be something like that. But everyone, there's a lot of southern people in this movie,
like the sheriff.
like the sheriff, yeah,
Hmm.
but who is Alan Hale, or the
Hmm.
skipper on Gilligan's Island?
Oh my god. Yeah, there's actually some like relatively famous people in this movie. I was looking at some of these people's filmographies. And it's like, oh wow. I think one of them was in The Gunfighter. Yeah, just like a bunch of different actors. No one that like I think if we said the names, you'd be like, oh, I know exactly who that is. But if you
Say a
said
name.
Skip,
I know exactly who that is.
okay, Bill Williams,
I know exactly who that is.
you can picture it right now. Oh, the guy from The Adventures of Kit Carson.
The Clay Pigeon, my favorite movie.
Oh, yes, I love the clay pigeon. But yeah, so the way this movie sets up, it's a classic comet movie. A comet comes down, it comes crashing, and there is geodes everywhere with diamonds. And come to find out, we'll get later into the movie, this isn't really explained. The spiders start crawling out of it. But this movie starts with a revival, which is really funny about this guy and that's like a very common theme throughout this whole movie. This preacher yelling about the end of times and quoting scripture that actually has nothing to do with the movie. It doesn't really, this movie isn't really about the apocalypse, but it adds like an interesting theme to the movie.
Well, yeah, I really like the sheriff character when the comet
Hmm.
scene does come in,
Yes,
because
yeah.
he's like probably like the dumbest sheriff like I've seen in a movie.
Hmm. Yeah, no, there's a line that I love because the comet lands and a bunch of electronics go out, and this lady's like, my TV is out. And he's like, well, then why don't you call somebody else? And they're like, but I can't look up the number. He's like, well, just go to the yellow pages, let the fingers do the talking or whatever.
Yeah, well, yeah, he's like, my power went out. Call an electrician. That's like, or someone called. I'm like, my car's out on my car won't start now, and I'm stuck here. Well, call a repairman. That's the best play thing I can do. Call the garage.
Yeah, but I love it. This part made me bust out laughing because it doesn't happen again. He looks directly into the camera and it's like, I wonder why she hung up on me. Like it breaks the fourth wall. Just really silly. But yeah, no, this sheriff character, I love him. And like later we get a guy from NASA shows up and they pronounce it like Nassau, right? That's how they keep
Well,
saying it.
well, no, I think that's the joke though, is that he said
Yeah.
the scientist guy said he was from NASA, and he's like, oh, I love NASA, and he's like, and they're like, no, he's like NASA, like Houston, and then
Hmm.
um and then like this other like the younger guy comes up and he's like, oh, like Nassau, and the sheriff corrects him like, no, no, NASA Houston.
Yeah, it's a silly little joke. But the two that I liked, at least that I thought were funny, were the two that live in the cabin. Do you remember their names?
uh the couple you're talking about,
Yeah, I
right?
should just say, yeah, the couple. Yeah. Um, there's a couple at a cabin, the one that goes to revival, and the comet lands literally in their backyard. And the husband gets back, and his wife's like, "Oh, we need to figure out what that was." And I mean, it's a giant explosion of light. It changes like the colors of the film. And he's like, "Oh, I'm too tired from the revival. I'm gonna just go to bed." And they don't even look at this thing that happened in their backyard. They sleep and figure it out the next day.
Yeah, and they have a very interesting dynamic because she's drunk all the time,
Yes, yeah.
and he's just a jerk, and
Oh
the whole
yeah.
time too. And they they have a daughter. Well, I think he's like the stepfather, is what they said.
Yes, yeah.
And like you said, the movie goes in a very sexual direction all of a sudden with this girl character.
Yeah, they like it's really weird because like there's a scene where, he's like, "Oh, I wish you got punished a bit more. I'll bend you over my knee and spank you." And she's like, "Oh, that's how you get your jollies." That's exactly what she says. And they chase each other around the table. Super weird stuff.
Yeah. Well, they eventually do find that it was like a little meteor. It looks like a little geode type of
Hmm.
thing, and it does have these little diamonds inside of it.
Yes,
And
yeah.
he he goes to I guess the geologist or whatever, like the jewelry store guy or
Yeah, well, they
whatever.
they just say my cousin runs a rock shop.
Yeah, rock shop, which I don't know what that means, but um,
It's a
he
thing, I
he
guess.
he goes over there and he's just like, "Hey, you still got that hot little number at home? That little girl Terry? I heard, she's really hot." And like, he's like, "Yeah, yeah, yeah. You never mind that. Like, just tell me about the diamonds."
Yeah, and I love it. Like the diamonds is like, oh, these are manufactured. They're fake. They're not real diamonds. They would only be worth it if you had barrels full. And of course, he's got a ton, so he runs home excited about it. Um, and he tries to give it to his stepdaughter. He's like, "Oh, if you take this diamond, you can come in. Would you leave with me?" Because he's just trying to cut his wife out of this deal.
Yeah, he's like, no, well, he's trying to like sleep with his stepdaughter,
Well,
and
yes, yeah.
yeah, yeah, and he's like, "I'll give you this diamond if you'll do things with me," and it's just like, ugh, and like just disgusting.
Yeah, I wonder
And
how cut down this movie was because I was reading that this movie aired 3 times on ABC as like their movie of the night. So and there had to have those scenes probably were just ripped out of this movie.
well, I mean, there's a scene where she's like a prolonged scene where she's topless.
Yeah, she just gets out of the shower and it's the rock shop guy there. And I think oh God, he there's something he says in there that, oh yeah, they're cousins. That's what it is. And
He's like,
he's
"Yeah,
like,
but not Bud."
yeah, yeah, we're not blood cousins, so we can be kissing cousins all we want. It's like so gross.
Yeah, nasty.
Uh-huh.
uh, but I do love there are non-sexual gross moments in this
Yes,
movie,
yes, of
and
course. I think that
and
was it. I think that was the
that
biggest.
yeah, and uh, because there's a scene where since they bring home all these geodes and diamonds, it's like all these spiders are attracted to their house now, and there's just over time like cobwebs start getting put into the house, and they're just
Uh-huh.
I do like it because like each time we like revisit them, there's like more and more cobwebs in their house,
Yeah, it just
and
gets worse and worse.
yeah, and they start ingesting like she starts blending like a Bloody Mary, and she accidentally blends up a spider with it
Yeah.
too.
I love the scene of her laying in bed and she's just drinking the whole time and the spider slowly crawling up her up her blanket and the music's ramping up, and then she just gets up, right? She gets up and it's like, oh, it didn't get her, and the music just like cuts instantly. It's just like a very abrupt end in the middle of the song. I thought that was funny. But that's the scene where the giant spider, or there's a giant spider later, a mid-level spider hops out of the dresser at her.
Yeah, there's so many spiders in this movie. Which I've seen this, like I told you before we recorded, I had seen another movie called Kingdom of the Spiders, and in that movie, you know, there's a bunch of little spiders. There's not necessarily like a big king spider like in this one, but in that one, it's very clear that they're like killing like real spiders. And I was trying to think like they had to be doing that in this movie too, don't you think?
Oh yeah, for sure. Plenty of spiders died. I'm sure during the. I don't think it's as crazy as Kingdom of the Spiders, but there's like one scene where one gets stomped. I'm pretty sure.
Well, I think she hits it with something,
Yeah,
or one of either her or the daughter. I can't remember, but one of them hits a spider with something, and it looks like a ketchup packet just like exploded, like just.
yeah, exactly. Which I mean, like that's probably fake. I don't think a spider would.
Well, yeah, that part, yeah, but I'm just saying in general. I'm sure there wasn't a whole lot of care for these spiders.
No, it's like the rats in in Willard. I'm sure.
Well, yeah, in that one, it's like there was like you can actually see like a rat being poked, and like,
Yeah, I guess we don't really have that here.
yeah,
Yeah.
or what was it? The little girl lives down the lane or whatever. When
Oh
Martin
yeah.
Sheen burns a cigarette into a hamster.
That's right. That was, you know what? That was messed up. I think I blocked that out of my memory.
Well, in his defense, the thing was already dead when he did that, but
That's
still,
true. That's true.
still a very messed up scene to watch.
Yeah.
But anyway, going back to this one, I want that. So what you said, like the giant spider appears out of nowhere, and it does start eating the people, and one of them is the man, the redneck guy, and the deaths of when these spiders like eat these people, it's so violent. Like
It is, yeah. I really like like because okay, it's very cheap design, but I think it's awesome to see this giant spider that they built. Like it's crazy, and it has a mouth, and it like sucks them up through their mouth, and it's just there's blood everywhere. I think it's really cool just seeing the spider work.
yeah, I mean how the movie starts, which you didn't say, is like how they knew there was a giant spider. It was like they would just find these like corpses or like
Yeah.
half-eaten skeletons just lying around, which is pretty cool. I mean, you know, like obviously it doesn't look as impressive as other movies, but I mean, like when you look at it, it clearly just looks like a parade float with like movable legs,
Yeah.
kind of. But it's still very. I For a small movie like this, I was pretty impressed that they were able to do
Yeah.
something that scale.
Exactly. You would think like it would be trick shots, like at an upward angle of an actual tarantula or something. But no, they went out of the way to build a big tarantula. And it's not trickery either, because there's plenty of shots of, there's some scenes with a lot of extras. Like there's the baseball field scene where all the kids are running away and the spiders crawling behind them. And you can tell this thing that they built is really big. Um, and I think those are some of my favorite scenes is of the spider on the streets chasing people down and people are being trampled in the streets and everything.
Yeah.
And those are a lot of fun.
Um, One aspect too, I wanted to you mentioned earlier that I didn't touch upon was the preacher
Oh
doing
yeah.
doing like constantly doing the revival speech,
Mm-hmm.
and they reference this preacher a lot, but this preacher like never shows up like anywhere. It's just constantly doing the sermon. Like they just cut
Yeah.
to it, and one thing we didn't explain was how one thing they used to explain the explosion noise is that the sheriff is like, "Oh yeah, that preacher was so loud that night," and like the scientist comes over, it's like, "Yeah, we heard the explosion." Like, "Oh, don't worry, say no more. I'm gonna tell that preacher he needs to be quiet."
Yeah, he's like, no, I don't think that was it.
Yeah.
Um, actually,
I,
Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Oh no, and the other thing too, the other time they reference the preacher is the couple where they're talking about, I forget what they're talking about, but uh he was saying like, oh, don't worry, the preacher will exercise them. And she's like, they get enough exercise already.
And I could feel like a sitcom, him looking at the camera and shaking his head. That's like, because I think he shakes his head.
Yeah.
No, I was going to mention, other than the preacher, there's like a scene, because we talked about the NASA scientist, but there's a female scientist in this movie too. And I love her introduction scene because it just feels like, so the NASA guy comes over and is like, hey, I'm looking for, I think your dad, I think is the first thing he says. And normally the joke is like, oh, I thought a man was the scientist, and it would be one time, and she'd be like, no, I'm the scientist. But no, she's like, oh, well, no, my father's dead. And he's like, oh, your brother then? No, my brother works works as like a home decor person. Okay, your husband then is who I'm contacting. And she's like, no, I'm a scientist. Women can be scientists too. It took so long to get to that point. And I thought that was silly.
Yeah. I the two of them, when they would have scenes together, it was usually the most boring parts of the movie for me.
Oh
because
yeah.
because it's just like they're just saying like all this scientific psychobabble most of the time.
Yeah, and what's so funny about it is I did get a kick out of some of those scenes because the NASA scientist, there was a couple of times you could obviously tell he was just reading off a cue card, looking off, and his eyes were like this, like obviously not caring about this movie at all. I do think that bit's a filler for sure. Like, oh, there's no need to explain this. Meteor came down, we got a big
Yeah.
spider. Like that's all we need to know.
Yeah, I've accepted that this is an otherworldly spider. Yeah, I don't need to have a scientific explanation as to why it's
Yeah,
here.
they're talking about like creation of black holes. They say like warp like hole at some point. It's like we don't need this. Come on.
Yeah.
Um, but eventually, like the movie kind of like all comes together. They get like mobs. There's like mobs in the streets with guns, and they're ready to gun down the spider, but the spider can't be damaged by guns.
No, and apparently can only be damaged by flare guns.
Yes, yeah, for whatever reason. Actually, a fun fact that I read about this movie was that they actually tried to blow up the spider at the end of the movie, and they put gunpowder all over it, and they used like a matchbook, and they tried to light it multiple times, and it did not work. They used the whole matchbook, it didn't work, so they just turned off the cameras. When they turned off the cameras, the spider blew up. So they did not capture that on camera. And people had like their hair singed off and stuff like that. It was really awful. That's why the end of the movie, the climax, is really weird, right? Because like it almost like is like an explosion coming in on itself. They play like something in reverse. It's really weird.
Right. I was wondering what they were trying to do. I was like, I didn't understand because they do fire a flare gun at the thing, and it does. Basically, yeah, like you said, it looks like it's set on fire, but then it's sucking in smoke, and I didn't know what it was doing, and then all of a sudden you just see a big fireball.
Yeah, exactly. So it's just all because they messed up. They stopped filming. That's why you got to film everything. You can't stop filming.
That's why I'm filming us talking right now.
Well, this is all being recorded on Zoom. I got video footage of all of this, so don't think.
I mean the cameras that we have in your place right now when I visited.
What? What are you talking about? You set up cameras? Is this like real world? You're recording me at all times?
I gotta make sure I see at all times.
Okay, make sure that I'm actually watching the movies.
Yes.
Not reading the Wikipedia synopsis real fast before the
episode. Make sure you're not cheating on your cinema grids.
Oh yeah, I'm not cheating. No. But good old shout out to Cinema Grid.
Can't wait till we could put Giant Spider Invasion as a clue, as a guess.
I know. What could we do? Oh yeah, movies.
movie starring Alan Hale Jr.
Yeah, and I'd be like the giant spider invasion.
Yeah, okay. Name
Okay.
2 other movies he was in.
The Gilligan's Island movie?
If they better hope they count TV movies. Like I said, it's everything that you probably have already seen this movie. To be quite honest, you not this exact movie, but if you've seen a creature feature like that before, it checks all the boxes. And it's for me, it was like a nice, comforting feeling because I used to like watching these types of movies, like on like I'd run them from the video store sometimes, or like you'd see them on like the Sci-Fi Channel. You'd catch them like midway through or something, and watching movies like that. So for me, is it a good movie? No, it's not. It's not good. But in terms of a good time, it's great. One scene too I want to mention, before I forget, which probably had like the part where I had probably laughed like one of the hardest times while watching a movie for this show was
Really?
the the girl all of a sudden, the girl that she's walking around the house in like a towel and everything, and then all of a sudden one of the spider legs just like punches through the window,
Uh-huh.
and like the whole, and then like, but it's like clearly like a really cheap wall because like the whole wall is shaking and everything. It was so funny to me.
No, I loved it because that's like the classic slasher scene of like someone breaking through, like I think a girl's night out, which we talked about, but with like a tarantula leg. No,
Yeah,
no,
it's good stuff.
no, it really is. And I mean, that's this movie in a nutshell. It's like if you listen to the show and like B movies, this will be right up your alley. It's just a classic B movie. It's fun. It's a fun bad movie. And I think it deserves a spot up there as a fun bad classic.
Definitely. I recommend it on those terms.
Yeah, and make sure to vote for Bill Rebane, who has ran for the Wisconsin government to be the governor multiple times under the Reform Party. So, Ross Perot's party. So he has not won, but he
Oh,
is politically active.
well, good for him.
Uh-huh.
Well,
Well,
I'm glad he could stay busy.
yeah, good for him. But I do think that wraps it up for today. Ryan, what are we going to be covering on Thursday?
Well, Nathan, we've talked about fair play before, but now we're going to be talking about some foul play.
Oh, I love birds.
Yeah, this is a very duck themed movie, so we're talking about the movie Foul Play, and that is streaming for free on YouTube right now.
Perfect. Just the way I love watching my movies for free. But
On YouTube.
on YouTube. But if you have any thoughts and opinions about this episode or the show in general, you can email us at driveanddoublefuturepodcast@gmail.com. You can catch us over on Twitter or X at DIDFpod. But until next time.
Till next time.